Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Jeremy. This is for English 252, online English composition. So today I wanted to go over, as you can see here, a really good, well, I say middle of the road, good, probably I would put it in the A range, uh, essay on, which I want you to hold yourself to the same standard, uh, on expository essay. All right, so this one's on ADHD. Um, I'm just looking at the schedule, course outline moving forward, and I'll cover this at the very end of this lecture. Um, so today we're going to review expository essay with example. Hopefully you watched and listened to the YouTube video that I sent, the link, and hopefully you turned in your personal essay final, right? So I can give you a mark and we can move forward with that. So now we moved on to expository essay, right? An expository essay, if you recall from the online lecture, should simply want to inform. This essay we're about to look at right now, it's not perfect. Uh, again, I would put it probably in the A range, but it certainly is not perfect. We're gonna read it together, and we're gonna point out some things we should celebrate and some things that are imperfect about the essay, right? So, just look at MLA. Remember MLA a long time ago? God, it seems like ages. Was the Modern Language Association formatting style. And that's exactly, they dictate what an English essay, an English class is what you're in, right? Should look like, right? So your name here, right? Student's name, your last name here with the page number, my name, call me professor, call me doctor, whatever you want to call me, it's fine. The class, English 252, and then the date. The date has to be in this specific format. Listen, this won't take you from a A to a B if you don't get the date format correct, right? But it is important, right? Just to make your essay as best as possible, right? Obviously, you know that. So, a title. Give your essay a title, right? And don't make it random. Like, actually give it a title that means something, that gives it insight. The title is actually a mini thesis statement, right? Now we're moving into the realm of thesis statement, right? We're past uh, the personal essay, which it would be odd to have a thesis statement in a personal essay. It's like reading a book, a fiction or a novel, right? There's no thesis statement where the novelist, right, he or she is going to dictate what this entire novel is going to be about, right? Right, in one foul swoop, right? No, so but now we are going to have a thesis statement, right? And we're going to see that in a moment. Hopefully, the first paragraph distills down to a thesis statement. I hope that it does, and I think it does. All right, if memory serves me well. Okay, so this should be a mini thesis statement, right? The title of your essay. So in this case, for this example, right, this hypothetical, this was really an essay from a past student. So let's see how he or she did. Okay, so ADHD and the three types. Great. I know right away what this essay is gonna be about from the title, right? He or she didn't have to give me a giant um, title for the essay for me to understand it. I get it right now. I get there's three types of ADHD, right? Hopefully they define what ADHD is, right? Very soon, right? We never want. This is what we never want to do in an essay, and in life. If you write anything past the English class, right, you have to provide background information of language that is esoteric. Esoteric means it's very specific, right? It's technically driven, right? We have to understand right away, and hopefully the student does that. I think it was a she. Um, in the future, 2029, right? Hopefully she provides background information. Okay, here we go. ADHD, the three types. And the three types. To the neurodivergent is to learn, process, and behave differently than the standard. The brain functions in a different way that is classified as abnormal. There we go. So now we understand what neurodivergent is, right? It's abnormal brain functioning. One of the most common neurodivergent disorders is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So right here, she could have easily, and probably even it would have been advantageous, is to type in the abbreviation of ADHD, as we see here, right? And then the period, right? I think that would have worked better. And then the rest of the essay lists ADHD, which I think she does, right? Right? People with, just continue with the essay, People with ADHD remain consistently inattentive and or hyperactive impulsive. So when you use which, typically when you use which, it requires a comma in front of it. Otherwise, you use that, right? The word that, right? And we could, I think that would work here. Consistently inattentive and or hyperactive impulsive. That in turn can affect development and their functions, right? So which works fine here. Which means that it's information we don't need to understand the full sentence, right? Otherwise, use that, right? I think that could have easily been applicable in this situation, right? So which in turn, but which is fine. I'm not going to split hairs over that. But if you are using which, use the comma before it. Which in turn can affect development and their functions. The percentage of people, so giving us a great definition, a foundation, a footing that we need to have of what ADHD is right away. Otherwise, we're on page 3. We have no idea what the hell ADHD is, right? But you have to give us a footing, right? And I'm going to ask the same thing of you when you write your expository essay, right? Whatever topic you choose, if you need one, you could always email me and I'll help you formulate that. But you have to give us proper footing into the topic that you choose, right? Okay, if you say Christmas is on December 25th, that's common knowledge, all right? You don't have to give me background, when Christmas, of it being on December 25th, right? Right? But with specific information, right? Like this, like ADHD, I need to know. I need to know right away that you know what it means and what it is, the background information, right? All right. Okay, here we go. The percentage of people with this disorder is rising. It is not uncommon for children to receive this diagnosis. Okay, one of the second tenets of the expository essay, remember we said it's to inform, but it's also to avoid persuasion, right? You're going to get to persuasion. You're going to be able to unload on persuasion once we get to the argumentative essay and once you get to your final essay, the research essay. But at this point, this juncture, right, with the expository, it needs to be almost journalistic, right, where you're not trying to persuade anybody. You're not argumentating on behalf of anything. You're simply giving information to the reader, to me, all right? And it gets difficult. And it distills down to, if you remember from the lecture, the YouTube lecture on expository essay, it distills down to sometimes language, how we use language, how we wield it, right? So, although ADHD can freaking, I saw one word. Oh, there we go, rising, right? Is that persuasive? The word rising? It, you could always temper language, persuasive language, with facts, right? With statistics, right? So, had this person, this student, later on, hopefully he or she does, uh, give us a number that really reinforces the idea of rising, then it's not persuasive. It actually is, it's subjective. It is actually taking place, right? So here we go. Continue with the essay. It is not uncommon for children to receive this diagnosis. Although ADHD can frequently last into adulthood, adults that haven't been diagnosed by a physician often go untreated and are unaware. Okay, so we get what this sentence is trying to say, right? But they're unaware? Unaware of what? Right? Their diagnosis or diagnoses? Right? So just, I would say they're unaware of their penchant or predilection to have ADHD. Finish the sentence. Um, Continuing on, ADHD severity. There we go. So that is very persuasive language, severity. Let's bolden that. Right? Severity. That is persuasive. Right? This is the student saying to me, there are things that are very unsevere that exist in the world, but ADHD is very severe. Right? It has a great severity to it. That's being persuasive. That is very, very, very concrete language. Okay. So ADHD severity and presentation can change with age. Perfect. Fine. Give me some stats right later on that really help underscore this severity and rising, right? These two words that are very persuasive, right? Especially severity is very persuasive. So ADHD severity and presentation can change with age. It is not unheard of for someone with hyperimpulsivity type to be diagnosed with predominantly inattentive type or combined type a few years later. Adults that suffer There we go. Let's bolden this, right? Give me a second. So we have 2, 3. Let's go back up to here and bolden this, right? We have 3 words, right? Just in the first paragraph, the introductory paragraph, right? That are in a couple of that or more, but that are persuasive, right? Argumentative, right? Rising. This disorder is rising. Fine. Later on, give me some stats to flatten that out, right? To seem more non-argumentative. Severity, which is very argumentative, and then suffer. Suffer is the worst word you can use until you get the argumentative essay or your research essay. It is very argumentative. You're saying there are some disorders, right? There's some adults that exist out there that are normal, that don't suffer, right? And then there are some that do. And by God, you're listening to me because I'm telling you they suffer, right? That is persuasive. And that is not what we're trying to do in this essay, all right? It's just giving us the facts, all right? Adults that suffer with hyper impulsive type may present it differently than they did when they were in their adolescence, right? So that when they were teenagers. There was a lot of misconceptions about the disorder that has led to misinformation. Great, great. Great. Now it has to distill down to what this essay is going to be about, and it does. Your thesis statement, right? And this does, right? The focus, boldness as well. The focus of this essay will be on ADHD and its 3 types. Good. So it's not amazing, right? The thesis statement, right? She could have summarized her points. She could have summarized the 3 types, right? There's A, B, and C, right? X, Y, and Z, right? She didn't, right? She's teasing that idea here in the title of the essay. In fact, she almost repeats it, and that's okay to do, right? I said the title of your essay is going to be a mini thesis statement, and that's fine, right? If we look down at her thesis statement, the focus of the essay will be on ADHD and its 3 types, right? And it's exactly, almost verbatim, what the title of her essay is: ADHD and the 3 types. Fine, that's fine. I would say the best essays do this, right? At the end of the first paragraph, after giving us background information of whatever it is you're writing on, right? Give us a thesis statement and then summarize in great proximity to your thesis statement those points, right? The points you want to make. She's going to make 3 points. I can see that already, right? So why not give us more information? Always err on the side of giving more information in an essay. Always, always, always. That doesn't mean repeat yourself 1,000 times, right? But always err on the side of giving more information. Okay, here we go. So let's see if she covers these 3 types. The focus of the essay, the thesis statement, right, will be on ADHD and its 3 types. Predominantly, should be a comma after this, by the way. Sorry. There we go. Predominantly, inattentive is the first type I will discuss. Great. The name itself is revealing on its own. How often, now she's posing a question to us, how often are you given a task that you complete to the very last detail without the need for constant reminder to stay on track? People with this type of, so it's persuasive. Sorry, it's not persuasive. It's intriguing and fascinating that she poses the question, right? Because the question begs an answer, and she gives us an answer. People with this type of ADHD display struggles to perform in that manner. They struggle. Right? Why do I say Persuasive language. They struggle, right? Strong verb, struggle, like suffer, right? Like severity, like rising. Okay, fine, it's okay, but give me numbers, give me statistics to back this up. All right, there's plenty of places to go to find stats that would back up the struggle, to back up the suffering, right? To back up the severity of ADHD, right? And that's where I think she fell short, right? Unless she gives us later on in the essay. They struggle with everyday routines, schedules, organizational skills, listening to instructions, and are easily distracted when their attention is needed. It can even affect their ability to uphold a conversation and or their ability to absorb what is being said. This lack of attention remains consistent in their behavior, and it is an everyday conflict. Uh-oh, right? There you go. The word conflict. Yeah, sure. ADHD, I can easily see that. That it's conflicting, that it has a conflict, that people struggle, right? That people suffer, that there's a severity to it, that the idea of ADHD is rising in our society because it's being more diagnosed than ever. Sure. But give me some numbers. Give me something to back that up. Give me a quote, right, from someone who's an authority on ADHD, right? In order to soften that persuasion out, because that is persuasive, right? The word conflict, just like the other words that we highlighted. All right. So, and it is an everyday conflict within themselves, which can negatively affect their work, social lives, personal lives, and education. So this is an incomplete sentence. I would say to you if you did this, right? And some of you, I've said that in your personal essays, this is incomplete thought, right? What does that even mean? Which can, if someone walked up to you on the street and said, hey, which can negatively affect their work, social lives, personal lives, and education, be like, what are you talking about, right? So I would say to this person, do this. There, now it's fixed, right? Now we're adding on a thought to another thought, right? So just to read from the beginning, this lack of attention remains consistent in their behavior, and it is an everyday conflict within themselves, which can negatively affect their work, social lives, and personal lives and education. I would say this to make it even more. This is called the Oxford comma, right? When you're creating a list, right? The and, right before the and, you add a comma, right? I think it's a better way to construct a list, right? When you're making a list, right? Okay, so here we go. What seems to come naturally to people can be quite the opposite for people that suffer. Here we go again, right? Suffer, right? Right here, suffer, right? So it's trying to be persuasive, and the biggest metric, excuse me, one of the biggest metrics of this essay is not to be persuasive. All right, so here we go. So I would say soften that language. And it comes down, it distills down to language, right? To fix a persuasive argumentative essay versus a strictly informative, which is what this is. Um, what seems to come naturally to people can be quite the opposite for people that suffer from predominantly inattentive ADHD. Fine, that's perfect. Many question why some people cannot function to a normal standard, and why they are impacted with this disorder. There is a lot of uncertainty behind the cause. Now she's giving us a direct quote. Quote, the condition often runs in families. There appears to be a genetic and neurobiological basis for ADHD, usually adults with the predominantly inattentive form of ADHD first developed it during childhood and adolescence. There you go, unquote. And then we get the name of the article. I know it's an article because it has quotation marks around it. If it was a book, it would be italicized, right? I know it's an article that this person found online, which is fine, right? And it's called ADHD Inattentive Type. This title, this article, if you remember back to our MLA formatting style, that very boring 1 hour long PowerPoint YouTube video that I gave you, right? Is that if it's a really long title, you shorten it to the first 3 or 4 words, right? And so that's what she did here, right? When we get back down to the works cited page later on in this presentation, this lecture, we'll see if she shortened it. But it looks like she has. Oh, maybe not. We'll have to see in a moment. ADHD, inattentive type. All right, so this is her in-text citation. This is important because she gives a direct quote, right? So we have to know where this came from. And she's given us the article, right? Just give us the name of the article, ADHD inattentive type, right? We have to have that, right? Otherwise, I have no clue. I have no clue, absolutely no clue where this came from, this quote. So this quote is 1, 2, 3 lines long. Had it been 4 lines long, it has to be formatted as a block quote, right? And we talked about that again in the MLA formatting style lecture, right? If it's 4 lines or more, you have to use what's called a block quote. All right, so she's under the 3 lines of texting, of direct quote. So she's fine, well within her purview. All right, So here's the problem. You get the punctuation after in-text citation, right? Typically a period, right? This specific type can go unnoticed, especially in children. It is not uncommon for the symptoms to be overlooked because they are being mistaken for lack of motivation, stubbornness, and sometimes even unintelligence. Because predominantly inattentive ADHD lacks the hyperactivity, impulsivity side, children are possibly neglected the help they need. All right, so I would say this is kind of persuasive, this word, right? Neglected. Neglected the help they need because people are unaware of the different types and assume that persistent, inattentive, and hyperimpulsivity must go hand in hand. Okay, I'm okay with that. Um, I would kind of want her to be more academic here with hand in hand, right? That's more of you and I talking together on the street. We're at a bus station and we say, oh, that goes hand in hand with this or part and parcel, right? That's not academic, right? It should be more academic, right? I'm not going to take off, I wouldn't reduce her mark again from an A to a B, but I'm starting to build a case against this being an A paper, right? Unfortunately, if someone came up to you on the street and said unfortunately, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Right? It's a bad thing, right? So that means it's persuasive. It's argumentative. Unfortunately, so I would say soften that language down. Don't just throw it out and just start with it is more common for females to slip through the cracks in early childhood because they may come off as passive and they do not seem to have anything unusual going on with their functions. I would say, what does that mean? Functions of what? Right? Expand on that. I would say, if this was your paper, your essay, your expository essay, I would say, well, expand on that. I don't know what you mean by functions, right? It is not uncommon for people, including children, once diagnosed, to start the process of finding a medication that works for them. So if I ask you, if I came on the street, you're at a bus stop again, we use the bus stop analogy, and I said, that works. You're like, what are you talking about? What works? What do you mean works, works, works? It's abstract language. It means nothing. So again, I would say raise the language of this area to a higher level, right? That's more specific, more precise, right? Because here works, I have no idea what it means, right? Finding a medication that works for them, right? Obviously, we know what the word works means in the context of this sentence, right? But I would ask of her to be more specific, to be more precise, right, in her language. It is important. Uh-oh, here we go. Right? If it's important, right, whatever she's going to say, that means there's things in this world that are not important, right? So that's being persuasive, right? It is important, and I would say soften that language down. Just take it out. Take the word out. Uh, it is important that that the medication is being monitored to narrow down a dose and type of medication that is suitable. Sometimes, and I would even say, I know this is how difficult it is, right? Essay writing, right? I would even say, well, what do you mean? Define what suitable is. What it's abstract. If I said to each of you, I said, give me a definition without looking it up on the internet, right? Even if you do, it would be a plethora of answers, right? A cornucopia. I would say, give me your assessment of what the word suitable means, right? I would get 30 different answers, right? Because it's abstract language. So unpack that for me, I would say to the student. Tell me what suitable means. Or just throw the word out and give me a more precise word, right? So dose and type of medication that is suitable. Obviously, we know what she means in the context of this sentence, but I think it's problematic. Sometimes people will also partake in therapy and coaching sessions. Fine, there's some problems there. Okay, good. She indented. Every new paragraph has to be indented, right? Just to get down to the mechanics of building an essay, right? Indented, indented, indented. Perfect. Page 3, student's last name, page 3. Hyperactive impulsive ADHD is the second type I will be discussing. So this is passive language. Anytime you use the word will be, right, is passive language. Avoid it. Always try to use active language, right? I will discuss, right? Instead of I will be discussing, right? Hyperactivity, impulsive ADHD is the second type of disorder I'll discuss. Um, More children than adults tend to be diagnosed, although it is not always carried into adulthood. It can be. So she's joining two complete sentences with the word although. More children than adults tend to be diagnosed. That's a full sentence. So we need a semicolon there, right? And then a comma. So there you go. Now it's perfect. More children than whenever you're joining two complete sentences, right? With a word like however or although, right? You have to have a semicolon before it and a comma afterwards, right? More children than adults tend to be diagnosed, although it is not always carried into adulthood. It can be. Oh, sorry, it still can be. Hyperactivity usually lessens with age. So I would say, what does that mean? Lessens. I don't know what that means, right? Someone comes up to you and says, hyperactivity usually lessens with age. You're like, oh, you mean lessen? Like it becomes less significant? And the person might be like, yeah, yeah, less significant. And I would say, what does significant mean? That what are you talking about, right? Give me a stat, right? Give me numbers. Show me that how it lessens, right? With statistics, right? Numbers. People tend to hold back on the testing of this disorder because it is normal for children to have lots of energy. So lots means nothing at this point. I have no idea what that word means here. Lots of energy and sometimes be hyper. So again, passive language be to be, right? Um, and are sometimes hyper, right? In order to take out that to make it more active language. But children with this disorder do not go through phases of extensive energy. So it looks like she's joining two complete sentences with a comma, which you can't do. You cannot do. So let's just go through this and see if that's what she's doing. But children with this disorder do not go through phases of extensive energy. Right? That's a statement. That's a full sentence. It remains consistent and can show through into their personality. That's a full sentence too. So there should be a semicolon, or they have to put a. They could do and, right, with a comma, right. There you go. There you go. Now that makes sense, and it remains consistent and can show through into their personality. People that have this type of ADHD encounter issues that not with nonstop talking, inability to stay still, lack of patience, lack of conversational skills, interrupting or blurting out, and are always on the move, as well as being impulsive, comma, setting up a sentence. It can affect their driving and their chances and frequency of being in accidents or receiving injuries. Hyperactive impulsive type can cause problems. Okay, so problems is what? That's persuasive language. So people with this disorder, they have problems versus people who don't have the disorder, right? Who have no problems, right? So it's them persuading us. We have to avoid that. We have to avoid persuasion, right? So just take the word out. Hyperactive impulsive type uh, can have, here's where it boils down to being tough, right? How do you replace that word and still express what you want to say? Hyperactive impulsive type. Yeah, it's tough. Even the word issues can have issues in their personal or social life, right? That's still persuasive, as well as education and at work. It is. I'm just here now. It is normal to assume someone that has this type of disorder could also struggle with inattentiveness, but that's not always correct. And I would say correct. That's persuasive. So how would you replace correct and to take away the persuasion, right? You would say it's not always the case, right? Sorry, not always the case. Period. All right. So, and even Word is flagged this, right? It's anytime a Word document flags something in blue, that means it's a mistake on some part, right? You have to set up a quote with either a colon or a comma. There you go. But that is not always the case. Quote: a child with hyperactive impulsive ADHD may not always show many signs of inattention. They may not necessarily have trouble focusing on becoming easily distracted. All right, now we get to get in the same article as before. If you recall, the in-text citation, just like this one, that's important. Give me a direct quote, or you paraphrase, or you summarize. You have to give me an in-text citation. Unless what? Unless you mention the title of the article in the setup for the quote, right? So just continuing on, we need a period here. We need some sort of punctuation to end this. So let's see why they're flagging us here. Okay, it went away. There is no clear reason why, but boys are diagnosed with the disorder more than girls. Like the predominantly inattentive type, there is no sure answer how hyperactive impulsive ADHD is caused. But children with a close family member that are subjected to the disorder are more likely to be affected. So we get a direct quote here. We should probably have it set up with either a colon or a comma. Research does not support the the popularly held views that ADHD is caused by eating too much sugar, watching too much television, parenting, or social environmental factors such as poverty or family chaos. Of course, many things, including these, might have symptoms worse, especially in certain people. All right, so a couple things wrong here. That this is a big quote. It's four lines or more. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it has to be a block quote, right? A block quote is always set up with a colon, right? So we're gonna do this. Now that's a block quote. Um, in a block quote, I know it goes against convention of what we just learned. You got to take away the period, and you got to end the period here. Right now, it's correct. That's a block quote. 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. There you go. That's properly formatted now. In the event you want to avoid using a block quote, right? Two things. One, you could email me and say, hey, I want to use a block quote because I got 5 lines of that I want to quote, and I think it really has to do with my essay and what I want to express in my essay, and reaches directly back to my thesis statement, and I don't know how to do a block quote, and I've Googled it, and I still can't find it, right? You reach out to me. Or don't use it. Break your quote up, right, into a shorter than 4 lines. All right, I'm just continuing reading her essay. It is typical for people with this disorder to take medication for it, whether it be stimulants, non-stimulants, or even antidepressants. All medications have risks. Physicians closely monitor. Okay, all medications have risks, so I don't think we need that comma there. It's interrupting the sentence, the flow of the sentence. All medications have risks. Physicians closely monitor the dose and type that is being taken to assure a lesser chance of any negative responses. It is ideal to work with a therapist or psychologist as well. All right, so ideal, again, reaching back to language that I'm boldening, right, is persuasive. It's ideal, right? It is good. Ideal is just a synonym for good. It's good that you do this. So they're being persuasive, and you shouldn't be, right? Because it's saying that it's ideal for you to do this, and it's not ideal for you to do anything else. So I'm trying to persuade you to do this, right? To go see a therapist or a psychologist, all right? All right, so why is this a problem right here, thirdly? Right? Because she's not being consistent. She didn't say secondly or firstly anywhere, right? So I would say be consistent, right? At the very least, just be consistent, right? Or just throw thirdly out. Just start with the sentence with ADHD, right? And by the way, it should have a comma, right? It's a pause. A comma is right when writing. Thirdly, and I would say throw thirdly out because it's not she failed to do anything that resembled firstly or secondly, right, in the essay. So ADHD combined type is the most common of the 3. The combined type is predominantly attentive combined with hyperactive impulsive. People with this type of ADHD do not have a more severe, okay, there we go, severe, right, persuasive form. Or even an easier form, easier, that's persuasive, saying that there's a harder form versus an easier, than someone with either of the 2 other types. Here we go, we're setting up a quote. Let's do a colon. Being diagnosed with combined type ADHD means your symptoms are more likely to be evenly distributed between the 2 types. Perfect. Right, I need a punctuation here. It's typically a period after an in-text citation. The struggles, right? It's very persuasive. It's like using the word suffer that we saw earlier in the essay, right? Where is it? Struggle, suffer, right here, right? So you could see if when I go through your essay and I see this language, right? then I'm going to flag it. I'm going to say, hey, this is reducing your mark, right? So severe, easier, struggles. The struggles and treatments are similar to other types, so I don't think we need a comma here at all. Like, what's the point? The struggles and treatments are similar to the other types. Okay, let's see how close we are. Okay, we're in the last paragraph. Stay with me. Most, and this seems like we got too much spacing between. Maybe not. Let's read on. Quote. She's leading with a quote. That's fine. You can lead with a quote in the beginning of a paragraph. Perfectly fine. Okay. Quote. Most MRI studies of ADHD have been concluded on males, most likely due to the gender disparity of the disorder. There is evidence that the ADHD brain has a smaller global volume and an overall decrease in white matter volume compared to controls. Good. Let's see 1, 2, 3 lines. Good. So it doesn't have to be a block quote. So here we go. We got the in-text citation. Wonderful. Right. Again, she failed to put in a period, a punctuation at the end of this to show that this in-text goes with everything to the left. That is not to be mistaken as the cause, but that is what has been recorded from patients with the disorder. I'm not sure why this is being flagged. No, okay, it went away. It has even been studied that people with ADHD might have a delayed maturity in areas in their frontal lobe of the brain. Why would you put a comma here? Right? ADHD might have delayed maturity in areas in their frontal lobe of the brain. All right, here we go. Last paragraph. Let's see how she sums it up. As time goes on, for me, I'm not going to split hairs here, but I would put a comma there. As time goes on, pause, scientists hope to have more information on this disorder and the causes. But for now, all people can do is seek treatment if they so choose to help relieve. Right? They're saying she's being persuasive here, right? To help, right? You need help. I'm telling you right now, if you have this, you need help. Help relieve some of the difficulties they are faced with. If a parent has a child, okay, so this is redundant language, right? If a parent has a child, what do you mean if a parent has a child? That's what parents do. They have children. That's why they're called parents, right? So it's redundant language. I would say just if you have a child, there you go. Or if someone is worried. So she looks like she's very rushed here in this last paragraph, right? Like she has to turn this in, and she's being rushed, and she's like, "Oh, I gotta get this done," you know. So the language is getting sloppy, right? It's very unprecise. Or if someone is worried they have ADHD, there's no need for a comma here. Or if someone is worried they have ADHD, they may seek out a family doctor, psychologist, or sorry, there was a comma somewhere. Yeah, fine. The comma's fine there. Okay, yeah. Psychologist or psychiatrist. We live in a time where people, and this is a big sweeping statement, right? I would avoid big sweeping statements in any essay writing. We live in a time where people can search out services to make it easier. So that's very persuasive language, easier, right? To be avoided, to transition to the standard. And she does, she flags it standard, right? It's persuasive, but at least she's aware of that, right? She puts quotation marks around it. Standard, whatever that means, right? All right, now we're on to the works cited page, right? All her in-text citations have to correspond to an entry on the works cited page. Okay, so she would have lost a few points for saying references instead of works cited, right? So let's just correct that. Right, and that's all it is. Don't put page; it's works cited, right? It has to be alphabetized. If there's et als, meaning more than three authors or more, if you remember from the MLA formatting style PowerPoint YouTube video, right? You have to list all the et al authors on the works cited page. There's some problems here on a works cited page. Um, One, the letter J for J Sinfeld, right? Unless Sinfeld goes by J in his life, or her life, right? It's fine if it's that, right? But if they had the first name Jane or Jeremy or Jack, right? You have to list the full name, right? Something small, but something, pay attention, right? J Watts or S Watson, right? If this person goes by S, which they don't, they go by Sylvia or Steve or Simon, right? List the word Simon, right? This one's completely wrong, right? Because this is not the right. Maybe that's the website they went to, but this is the name of the article. The article should come first, right? And it should be it should not be italicized unless it's a book, right? If that's the title of an article, it should be quotation marked and it should be over here, right? Same thing with this. No, this one's correct. No, unless this is a book. Yeah, then let's see. It's an article. It's an article from Cleveland Clinic, right? So it should be quotation marked. Articles are quotation marked. They're a smaller thing, if you recall, right? Within the MLA formatting style YouTube video, right? If it's an article, it's quotation mark. If it's a book, it's the only time that you italicize anything is if it's a book, the title of a book. Okay? Everything else looks pretty correct. It's alphabetized, right? You see A, C, H, S, W, right? So she got that right. And I put this in A range. It's 5 pages long, 4 pages of prose, meaning of her writing, and then the last page being the works cited page, which she labeled as reference page, right? Which is incorrect, right? That is only for a science-based class, right? Psychology, science, biology, but in an English class, it has to be a works cited page, okay? All right. As always, please email me if you have any questions, okay? Uh, as promised, I'm looking ahead of the schedule. Um, Today is October the 4th, Friday. Great. The weekend coming up. So the 7th, review database research methods. So next class, I'm going to send you a video. We're going to look at research methods, especially how that interfaces with Medicine College's library. And they have a great resource. The databases are amazing, right? They pay money for us to have this access to these places that we could find information in order to insert right within our own essays. Okay, so we're gonna look at that. Email me if any questions. Start to think about what topic you want to do for your expository essay. Okay, take care. Talk to you guys later. Bye.